Hello, my name is Evan Barr, and we're going to be examining Prezi set up. Allow. Okay, so I'll just take you through the scope of the presentation. We're going to start by focusing on how the library influences literacy and education. That's the main thrust of this presentation. Examining how libraries are dedicated to creating literate environments that support basic education for all. Once we've assessed that, we're going to switch gears and focus on how the library will become a place for future generations to reach these goals. How students, starting today to the future, are going to use libraries, and how libraries are going to remain relevant as places for learning for future generations. So those are the two main prongs of this assignment, and let's get started. So first of all, I want to explore the impact of accessing books, or providing access to books. The positive impact of books and access to reading materials on reading achievement and creativity is widely acknowledged, but it's difficult to find concrete impact statistics among the academic literature. One thing I did find, though, is that it's best to examine the impacts we can find. It is best to examine it in developing nations, because literacy is less prevalent to begin with. These are the places where literacy is still growing, so it's easier to analyze how libraries impact it. So one such initiative is the Read Educational Trust, which is in South Africa, where children are in classrooms with libraries, and they are measured in comparison to school counterparts that don't have these libraries. And the statistics show that these students were 189% ahead, and 189% more fluent, and were ahead by 18 months in their reading scores and 2 years in writing. Book floods is another strategy that's been used in Fiji, Singapore, and Sri Lanka, and it just simply increases the amount of reading materials available. Students are immersed in high-interest books designed to be read, discussed, and shared, and evidence shows that book floods bring dramatic improvements in literacy, especially for younger age groups, and where children are learning in a language different from their home language. And finally, another strategy that's being used by libraries, it's a project called NUVA, and it's in Colombia. NUVA, and they've been replacing textbooks in the library with self-instructional study guides, and these study guides are supplemented in a package with a wide choice of additional reading and reference materials. Now, the results of this project show that students from these schools score highly in most cognitive and non-cognitive tests when compared to their peers. In our literate society, the real challenge is to motivate children and adults to read for self-study and pleasure when competing against things like television and computer games. So it's important for libraries and classrooms alike to be equipped with highly engaging material that is going to interest the reader. It's got to be relevant material that is interesting, contemporary, and obviously not appropriate for gender, appropriate to language, appropriate to reading level. So that's a real challenge that we need to face, and something that we are hopefully going to be shedding some light on later in the presentation on how to do that. Now, the role of a library in a society is something that's changing, and professional libraries are changing worldwide. They're no longer professional libraries, and librarians, I should say, are changing worldwide, and that they're no longer just preservers of books. They have evolved, or need to evolve, to become facilitators of information and learning opportunities, with emphasis on service, identifying user needs, communicating solutions. Modern libraries are unfolding the community's learning potential by providing information on community issues such as health, employment, local history. The equitable access to information that libraries provide enable educated people and informed citizens to participate in a global community. Librarians are also becoming custodians of the local and national culture, in that they help bridge the information gap by providing free access to information and communication technologies, obviously the internet. They're inclusive in that they build bridges between individuals at the local level and the global level of knowledge. Next slide here. Now, some examples of these modern library systems, in that they share a few common traits. They have been established as an integral part of the national education and information strategy, based on the library laws and appropriate funding. They offer free access to information, and they're highly service-oriented, and they constantly improve their services. These are what we call hybrid libraries, and they offer traditional media, such as books, but they have a strong focus on providing access to online information, and they are highly appreciated by the population. Now, libraries need to increase their cooperation with community organizations to achieve these goals. Need to offer a variety of activities, including author readings, creative writing classes, introduction to technology, reading groups, discussion groups. The flexibility of the library is essential to providing literacy success within specific communities. Now, an example of this flexibility is the adult literacy programs that were provided by libraries in the United States during the 1970s and 80s. During the 60s, it became apparent that adult literacy was an issue. A lot of this stemmed from increased immigration, where people were coming to the U.S. that did not speak English to begin with, and they wanted to nip this in the bud to avoid the phenomena of family illiteracy, and that the parents don't know how to speak English or write or read, and thus the children don't. And libraries played a huge role in focusing on extending their services to marginalized people like this, particularly through literacy programs. Libraries are the perfect place to provide these classes, in that they're easily accessed. They have easy access to all the resources needed to run an adult literacy program. And most of them can provide space for a student and tutor, and they usually are centrally located and easily accessible to public transport, which is huge. Adults with low literacy levels often have bad memories of schools too, and a negative attitude towards formal education, so situating them in a library is slightly different. Now, this was used to break the cycle of family literacy, as I just alluded to. It's a perfect place to offer family literacy programs, as it provides materials and services to all age groups and reading levels. Now, by using the library with the children, parents are setting a good example and help establish a motivation for reading and a pattern of lifelong learning. So, several countries and organizations have worked together to come up with guidelines to establishing these types of programs, usually in public libraries. But the most comprehensive set of guidelines to date appears to be the Guideline for Public Libraries, which is developed by UNESCO. Next, we're going to move into the future of libraries and how they're going to continue to provide adequate service to future learners. So, we need to forget what we know about the 20th century library. The dark places with rows of encyclopedias fossilizing, everything in perfect alphabetical order. The library as a warehouse of information is an outdated concept. The library of the 21st century is a community workshop, a hub filled with tools of the knowledge economy. It's no longer a read-only environment. It offers various classes. It has advanced software. It has tools that an individual may find too expensive to have in their own home, but can still benefit the population. Library must rebrand itself, sort of as a coffee shop alternative technology salon for the upwardly mobile, providing access to learning tools that aren't available elsewhere. To do this, libraries should look to the internet, which started as a place to post static pages similar to the way libraries used to just have static books that you go and get, to the internet has shifted to a collaborative environment. And that's what libraries need to do as well. There needs to be what we call production capability, which means there must be the ability to create within a library, have access to software and tools that allow you to build, create, collaborate. Instead of a warehouse for information, libraries need tools for use by the commons, sort of a Netflix of things. Library is a place where business starters should be able to come and work while keeping their kids entertained. The change is almost like a resurgence in the library, in that it should be a family experience where everyone can come and get something from it. Information has become easier to access, and libraries need to bolster their physical spaces to stay relevant. I have a few examples. The Martin Luther King Library in Washington has a digital commons equipped with 3D printers and a bookbinding machine. But libraries need to adapt to the needs and interests of their communities, the people they serve. For example, a library in Overland Park, Kansas, offers a popular seminar in hog butchering. This is a community-based program which would not be successful elsewhere, obviously, but the library provides it because they know that's what the community is looking for. The libraries are especially apt to increase their relevance in the coming years, considering the rise of the sharing economy, which is a concept arguably invented by the first libraries. The sharing economy means that instead of owning things outright, people pay to use them when they're needed. You look at the image there, you see the city bike. You think of Netflix as prime examples where you pay to use something when you need it, but you don't actually own it. Just a few facts to sort of close out the presentation here. 90% of Americans would be upset if their local library closed. 90%. But this survey conducted also found that only 52% feel libraries are relevant because they believe most information can be found on their own. Libraries thus need to adapt. People want them, but people want them to be better. Instead of a warehouse of information, libraries need tools for use by the commons. I'll conclude this presentation by saying that library, if it's going to remain dynamic, a dynamic learning force, it must support the academic community in several new ways. Its space must flexibly accommodate evolving information technology, and their usage as well must become a laboratory for new ways of teaching and learning in a wired or wireless environment. At the same time, the library must continue to reflect the unique legacy and traditions of the learning community which is part of. It must include flexible spaces that learn as well as traditional reading rooms that inspire scholarship, sort of a differentiated atmosphere. By embracing these distinct functions, the library as a place can embrace the excitement and adventure of the academic experience and foster a sense of community and assist in the advance of that community into the future. Thank you. Here are my references and credits attached to the end of the presentation. Hopefully they will come into focus here. Try it here again. Understand the references and credits part is not part of the time limit, so I'll try and get them to come into focus. Back here. There we go. So those are the references and credits. I'll leave those up there for a second for you to have a look at. Okay, thank you.